Ease of use is so relative to the times that we live in. A significant portion of our population does not remember or were not even alive when interactive computing machines did not dominate all aspects of our lives. But some of us do remember command line driven systems, DOS, giant computer monitors, and Blackberries. If we rewind just a single generation and compare the user experiences then to what we have now, it's astonishing to realize how far we've advanced. Now, simple hand gestures, finger taps, and voice commands get most of the work done. Where will we be in another generation? Are you ready? Because we're all laying the groundwork for that, let's take a look and be sure we're ready and we're practicing usable. Now we're going to move to the computer realm of human-computer interactions. Of course, computer means any technology that those humans are interacting with, and any technology that drives their interactive panels of glass, and any technology that you put out there in the world for them to interact with. First, in that realm of computers is this concept of usable. Now, usable is the traditional and long-standing science of ease of use. In a very real sense, usability and ease of use are what I would consider to be table stakes in this realm of doing anything online. If you exclude this, you do it at your own peril and at your user's peril as well. So usable speaks to the core, the most important fundamental process of human beings interacting with digital interfaces. This is often referred to as usability or user experience, and I've done a lot of that research over the last 20 years. Although what I teach and what you'll get here in this workshop and in the academy really goes way beyond those traditional disciplines, and you'll learn more about that as we get into this. Usable describes the most basic, the most obvious, the most familiar, and the most important aspects of how humans succeed with their interactive panels of glass. It is real people doing real things with your digital stuff in the real world in real time. Usable addresses a rich set of disciplines that ensures that your systems, tools, products, teams, processes, interactions, interfaces, anything that comes in contact with real people, the real people that you serve, it ensures that it makes sense to those people, it's easy to navigate, and allows them to complete key tasks. Plus, it guides them to the outcomes that you've designed for them and invested so much in what you put in the world. There is a well-developed art and science around how to make the user experience usable and how to work with a real user so you can confirm that whatever it is you're trying to build and put out there in the world is in fact usable. And that's the part about making the invisible visible. There's no way you can confirm that what you're providing is easy to use and is usable unless you actually observe real people using it. Traditionally, assessing usability in this way has been really rather complex and often very expensive, with costly specialized labs and consultants. But with this workshop and the Mastermind Academy, you're going to be able to accomplish far more without spending the tens of thousands of dollars that it usually takes to validate usability. Now, I've done usability for decades, and it's a fact that making ease of use visible in a rigorous way and removing those barriers to user success can in fact yield a huge return. It's common to realize a 10 times, 50 times, even 100 times return on whatever you invest in usability and ease of use, especially when that research, those inquiries, that process of making the invisible visible, when that leads to discoveries and improvements that produce more user traffic, higher conversions, more online orders, more revenue per order, more frequent return visits by your users. Could also mean lower phone and email support costs, fewer product returns, faster transactions. There are many ways that you can realize a significant return on your usability investment, and whatever that happens to be. And why is that? Because, of course, everything that happens online is a series of specific actions, decisions, and results completed by real people, real users. So those users are going to determine your success, and understanding how well they can make sense of and use what you're putting in front of them is essential. Let's go into some more detail on this whole question of ROI, return on investment. So this chart here is an example of the typical benefits of investing, let's say, $1,000 in usability research. Now, this is a very low volume, low price example. In this case study, let's assume that the price of the online product that you're testing is $20, $20 product, and that the volume that you sell is $1,000 per month. So basically, you're grossing less than $250,000 per year in sales. So even with that very modest level of business, and if we assume a very modest improvement in our usability research of only 5%, then all the returns on investment are positive. And in fact, most are in the hundreds of percent. So this example applies to the current discussion about usable, but this kind of return on investment could also apply to a lot of the other HCI processes, principles, methods that we're talking about here in this workshop, or that you might learn when we get to the Human Computer Mastermind Academy. Let's look at another example. This one's a little more specific, and this one's a little more typical. In this case, we're going to assume a product price of $100. And then in this case, as you can see, the returns on investment are into the thousands of percent and even tens of thousands. So let's look at a specific example in red right there in the middle of the table. In that example, I have a product that sells for $100 and I sell 200 of those per month for a total of $240,000 in sales per year, in gross sales. Now, if I invest $1,000 in testing and improving the usability of the website that sells that $100 product, and I realize a very conservative 5% improvement in my online sales, then that would yield for me an additional $12,000 in sales. Now, $12,000 in sales compared to my $1,000 spent on usability means I get a 1,200% return on my investment. And that's that red example you see right there in the middle. Not bad. Now, here's another major example. This is a real case study. In 2010, I did a major human-computer interaction project with a large U.S. financial services company. Now, they invested a total of about $125,000 in creating user narratives and assessing many aspects of usable, and they included their websites, email programs, call center, printed catalogs. From that investment, they realized a gain of $3.2 million to their top line sales or their gross sales. So for that $125,000 that they invested, and the gain that they realized of $3.2 million equates to a 2,560% return on investment. So you can see, even at a very large scale, these returns on investment are huge. And this goes all the way down to very small websites as well. So at virtually any level of sales or business, what you invest in usability and really observing how well real people, who are going to determine your success, how well real people can make sense of and accomplish useful things with your digital programs. Whatever you invest in that process, and then what you do to follow up on what you learn, can yield some significant outcomes for you purely from a financial standpoint. Now, there are lots of other potential benefits in addition to the financial, but you can see here that from a money standpoint, this is clearly something that could potentially create some true benefits for you. Okay, so why is all this important? First of all, usability has become a basic business practice. It's as standard now as doing marketing or providing customer support, or it's just so common and so needed and so important that it's not anything you should skip. And if you're not doing it, you're really missing out on a huge opportunity. You're also probably falling behind your competitors. In some cases, your competitors may be doing this in great depth, in which case they've developed a great deal more intimacy and knowledge of their audience, which is probably also your audience. So you can see what the risks are here if you're not doing this. As I showed in the previous case study, the return on investment is 10x, 100x, and then that one example is over 2,500 times what was invested in it. And that's just from a single usability study. Most people who are successful with human-computer interaction research do usability work constantly and repeatedly. And that's when the ROI really begins to multiply and add up. And we'll go into some more examples of that in some of the advanced topics coming up. It is definitely the right thing to do for your users. I mean, demonstrating basic respect, even beyond the money that you might realize as a result or many other benefits. If you're there to serve an audience or a customer set or a market or some set of users or prospects, why would you do anything other than try to make them happy, make them satisfied, do the right thing for them? This is another element of common sense, but it's really the whole purpose you exist is for those people. And why not do the right thing for them? And again, many examples of how it directly grows income and reduces cost. We've covered that in some detail, and we'll talk about it some more. And finally, it keeps users away from the exits. Any user is always a fraction of a second away from clicking to somewhere else. And somewhere else will likely be your competitors. So usable systems and programs close many of those exits. A user leaving is your money leaving, is whatever your outcomes or your goals happen to be. It's those things walking out the door. And usability research and acting on that will go a long way towards closing those exits. So here's what you need to know. Making your interactive programs usable is always focused on the users and your ability to make their invisible online behavior with all of your systems visible. In order to do that, you need to know what tasks those users need to perform and what tasks you need them to perform for you to be successful and reach your goals. And it's really critical that you look at both of those, and hopefully there's a lot of overlap. What you need them to do and what they need to do should be virtually identical. If they're different, then you probably have some serious work to do. You'll need to know and include whoever in your organization or your team or your operation is responsible for the design of your website, your apps, your social media, or any other digital programs. So their involvement is required, both in the planning stage, in actually doing the research, and then very much so in the follow-up of that research and deciding what to do about your discoveries. Usability overlaps with many of the other principles and practices that I'm sharing here in the workshop, as well as what we'll share in the academy. So usability touches all of the aspects of functional, seamless, useful, narrative, and we're going to cover all of those, and I've touched on some of them already. Of course, none of this is relevant unless you can test usable with real people, and again, in the real world. And I'll show you how to do that too. To include those users, you're going to need a clear understanding of who they are, how you're going to contact them, and how you're going to engage them, and that's coming up as well. Finally, in the Mastermind Academy, we're going to go through some usability process. And in some of the materials leading up to that, the upcoming free webinar series and some of the other blog posts and articles that I'll publish will include a lot more detail on how to run those processes. This is what that main core usability process looks like, the 11-step process. And again, when we get into the bonus, we'll talk more in detail, and I'll also provide a private invitation for anyone who signs up for the bonus, and that's all coming as well, so stay tuned for that. Be aware that there are a lot of different ways to run this process, so you'll want to make sure that you are signed up for the bonus so that you do get those materials as I make them available. Here's one little fun example of a video that was produced some years ago that I've always enjoyed showing whenever I do user research or whenever I teach people about this. And so one key aspect of usability is clarity and simplicity. And too often, online programs that companies and individuals provide to their users are not clear and they're not simple. So this is just a little tongue-in-cheek example of how not to do this.
For a number of years now, work has been proceeding in order to bring perfection to the crudely conceived idea of a transmission that would not only supply inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal grammeters. Such an instrument is the turboencapulator. Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it is produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive diractance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panametric FAM. The latter consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus O delta type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator. every seventh conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the Grammys. The turbo-encabulator has now reached a high level of development, and it's being successfully used in the operation of Noper trunnions. Moreover, whenever a fluorescent score motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal repleneration. It's not cheap, but I'm sure the government will buy it.
Now, for me personally, and for all the clients that I assist with this process, the whole realm of ensuring that systems are usable for real people includes a certain type of personal satisfaction. And I referred to this earlier, and this is all about knowing that I'm doing the right thing for those users, and therefore doing the right thing for my business and for myself professionally. It's getting the invisible out into the open where I don't have to worry and wonder. It's having a constant, rolling, progressive action plan of how I am personally and professionally going to continually get better, learn more, and create better results online. So what I teach is what I apply in all that I teach. This process eliminates the stress and the worries of simply not knowing what my users and my customers are finding, and not knowing what experience they're having. Even though the process may reveal significant problems with those human-computer interactions, at least I know what's going on, and at least I can make a plan for what to do about it. I cannot stress enough the difference between not knowing, being in the dark, and guessing at the source of my agony versus having insight and knowledge and therefore the confidence to take productive action. That's true with any endeavor, and it's certainly true with usability. In fact, it really goes to the core of what usability is all about. And when that productive action of making the invisible visible and really learning and knowing, when that leads to greater online success and greater overall business success, then again, I become more competent, more credible as a professional.